Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dig into something kind of unexpected?
Always.
Today, it's all about mining and metals. Yeah, you heard that right. This isn't your grandfather's industry anymore.
Not even close.
We're talking about the metals and minerals that are absolutely crucial for, well, pretty much everything these days. And we've been digging deep into a new report by EY. They've talked to all the big players to figure out what's coming down the pipeline in 2025.
And let me tell you, it's a wild ride.
So buckle up. We're about to unpack the biggest risks and most exciting opportunities facing mining. Forget the dry stuff, though. We're after those aha moments, those insights you won't find anywhere else.
The kind that make you rethink everything you thought you knew.
Exactly. So EY kicks things off with the big picture. The world needs minerals and metals, like a lot of them. And not just for bridges and buildings. This is about the energy transition. Electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines.
All that shiny green tech, runs on metals.
Exactly. But, and it's a big but, there are some serious challenges.
EY calls it a trifecta. I call it a three-headed beast.
Haha. Love it. So what are these three beasts trying to derail the future of mining?
Well, first up, you've got sustainability.
Okay, that one makes sense.
Miners are under immense pressure to minimize their environmental impact, and rightfully so. But it goes beyond just reducing emissions or cleaning up waste.
It's about rethinking the entire process.
Exactly. From exploration and extraction to mine closure and reclamation, everything needs to be done with an eye towards sustainability.
Okay, so that's beast number one. What about the second head on this monster?
That would be capital, or more specifically, capital discipline.
So basically, making sure every dollar counts.
Well, it's more nuanced than that. See, miners are used to thinking short-term, maximize profits now. But the kind of transformation EY is talking about requires massive long-term investments.
I see. It's like they're being asked to change their entire financial DNA.
Precisely. And that's no small feat. It's about balancing those immediate financial pressures with the need to invest in a future that might be 10, 20 years down the road.
Okay, 2 down, 1 to go. What's the final head on this beast of a challenge?
This one's a bit broader. Stakeholder expectations.
So it's not just about pleasing shareholders anymore.
Nope. We're talking about local communities, indigenous groups, governments, consumers. Everyone has a stake in the mining industry now, and they're demanding more transparency, more accountability, and more benefits.
It's like the whole world is suddenly paying attention to mining.
Exactly. And that's a good thing. It means the industry can't afford to operate in a vacuum anymore. They need to be more inclusive, more collaborative, and more responsive to the needs of all stakeholders.
It's a lot to juggle. You've got this trifecta of sustainability, capital discipline, and stakeholder expectations, all pushing and pulling the industry in different directions.
And that's why EY uses this really interesting phrase in their report. They say it's time to reimagine mining.
Reimagine mining. What does that even mean?
It means we can't just tweak things around the edges anymore. This isn't about making mining a bit greener or a bit more efficient. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how the industry operates.
So, not your grandfather's mining industry.
Not even close. Imagine mines that actually improve biodiversity or mining operations run in partnership with local communities where profits and decision-making power are shared. That's the scale of change we're talking about.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the big picture. The world needs more minerals and metals than ever before, but the industry faces this incredible trifecta of challenges. And the only way forward is to completely reimagine how things are done. But how do we actually do that?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, let's unpack this reimagining a bit. EY's report highlights their top risk for 2025, and it all comes down to one word: capital. Now, I know managing costs is always important, but this feels bigger, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about tightening belts. It's a fundamental mindset shift for a lot of these companies. For years, it's been all about short-term thinking, maximize profits now, and worry about the future later.
Right. But to really achieve this reimagining of mining, to invest in the kind of innovation needed to meet those sustainability goals and stakeholder expectations.
You need long-term vision. You need to be willing to invest in projects that might not pay off for a decade, but that have the potential to revolutionize the industry. It's about growth, not just today's stock price.
And we're already seeing companies start to make that shift, right? The report mentions something about companies spinning off assets, like they're hitting the reorganize button on their portfolios.
Exactly. They're shedding anything that's not a core high growth prospect. It's a way of saying, look, We're serious about this. We're focusing on the future.
And I'm guessing investors are paying attention.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that EY CEO Outlook Pulse survey we mentioned?
The one where they surveyed hundreds of CEOs?
Yep, that's the one. Well, get this. Every single mining and metals company they surveyed said they're planning some serious merger and acquisition activity over the next 12 months.
Wow, every single one.
Every single one. They're scrambling to secure their place in this new energy landscape. And investors, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're rewarding companies that are laser focused on those critical minerals.
Lithium for your EV battery, copper for those massive wind farms.
Exactly. The writing's on the wall. The companies that can secure access to these critical resources and do it sustainably, they're the ones that are going to thrive.
Speaking of critical minerals, and this is where things take a bit of a turn, the report flags a new worry. We're running out of the good stuff, like actually running low.
Yeah, resource depletion is a major concern moving forward. 2 brand new risks actually hit their top 10 list this year, and they both boil down to a simple, unsettling fact. Those easy-to-access high-grade deposits are disappearing fast.
So it's not just about finding new deposits. It's about what we're finding, or rather not finding.
Precisely. The report dives into this issue of declining ore grades, meaning the stuff we are pulling out of the ground is less concentrated. It's like trying to make a cake with less and less sugar. You might still get a cake, but it's going to be a lot more work, a lot more expensive.
Ah, that's a great analogy. And to make matters even more complicated, the report states that it now takes an average of 18 years to get a new mine up and running. 18 years. That's almost 2 decades from discovery to digging.
It's a long, complex process. Permitting, environmental impact assessments, community consultations, all essential, of course, but it all takes time.
And in those 18 years, technology changes, demand shifts, governments change, the whole world might look different. It's like trying to hit a moving target in slow motion.
It's a real challenge, no doubt about it. And here's another thing to consider. While exploration budgets are increasing, most of that money is still chasing gold.
Hold still.
Gold is shiny and all, but it's not exactly going to power a Tesla. We need a massive push for copper exploration, lithium, nickel, the real MVPs of the energy transition. And right now, that investment just isn't there at the scale we need.
Okay, so we've got this potential resource crunch brewing, development timelines that seem to stretch on forever. You'd think companies would be laser focused on governance, right? Making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But here's the thing, and this really surprised me. Governance has actually dropped off EY's top 10 risk list this year. Like, it's not even in the top 10 anymore.
It's a curious one, isn't it? And to be honest, a little concerning.
Yeah, especially when you consider everything we've been talking about as mining operations shift to regions with maybe, well, less stringent oversight.
And as companies are increasingly touting their ESG credentials.
Right, strong governance is absolutely essential.
It's non-negotiable. Without it, all those sustainability pledges, all those commitments to local communities, it all starts to ring a bit hollow, doesn't it?
It risks looking like greenwashing.
Exactly. And that's bad news for everyone.
So if governance isn't keeping mining executives up at night, what is? What are the big ESG concerns that are top of mind right now?
Well, environmental stewardship is huge. It's no longer enough to just follow the rules, to just stay compliant.
It's about going above and beyond.
Exactly. Miners need to be seen as environmental leaders. We're talking nature-positive practices, actively working to minimize their impact, and even looking for ways to enhance biodiversity.
So not just do no harm, but actually leave things better than they found them.
Precisely. And the report suggests they're feeling pretty good about it, too. Nearly half of those surveyed said they're confident about achieving those nature-positive goals.
That's encouraging. But let's not forget about the S in ESG, right? What about the social impact? What about local communities, especially indigenous communities, who are often on the front lines of these mining operations?
The report is very clear on this. Indigenous communities play an essential role in the future of mining.
And not just as, stakeholders to be consulted with, but as genuine partners.
Absolutely. They bring generations of knowledge about the land, sustainable practices that have been developed over centuries.
It's invaluable expertise.
Exactly. And miners are starting to realize that this isn't just about doing the right thing, it's good business.
A win-win. Miners get access to that deep well of local expertise, and communities get a voice in shaping the projects that directly impact their lives.
Precisely.
Speaking of impact, let's shift gears for a moment and talk geopolitics. You can't talk mining without acknowledging the global chessboard it sits on, can you?
Oh, absolutely not. It's intrinsically linked. And the report really digs into this idea of resource nationalism, which has become a major force in recent years.
It's like everyone's suddenly remembering that, oh, right, the world runs on raw materials, and those materials come from somewhere.
Exactly. And with the energy transition in full swing.
Suddenly, everyone wants to control those resources.
Precisely. We're seeing countries like Japan and Saudi Arabia pouring investments into securing their own supply.
So whether that's developing domestic mines or forging strategic partnerships abroad,
They're not taking any chances.
it's like a new kind of gold rush. Only this time, the prize is lithium, cobalt, rare earths. All those elements most people have never even heard of, but that are suddenly crucial to, well, everything.
It's a whole new world order.
And the report hints at another interesting dynamic emerging: friendshoring.
Yes. Essentially, it's about countries, particularly Western countries, trying to build more resilient, more secure supply chains.
So less reliance on geopolitical rivals, more partnerships with, well, friendly nations.
Precisely. And while that sounds great in theory, it could have some unintended consequences. The report actually suggests that it could disrupt existing flows of nickel, graphite, potentially creating bottlenecks and even driving up prices.
Well, so it's a complex web of, well, everything. You've got resource nationalism, shifting alliances, new technologies emerging. It's a minefield out there. Pun intended.
Uh-huh.
So with all this going on, how are mining companies even supposed to adapt?
Well, that's why this idea of reimagining is so crucial. It's not just about digging holes and shipping out raw materials anymore. We're seeing companies rethink their entire business models.
So less about digging and shipping and more about
Well, one trend that's really taking off is vertical integration.
vertical integration. So instead of just digging up iron ore, they're getting into steel production.
Exactly. Or instead of just mining lithium, they're investing in battery manufacturing.
So they're controlling more of that value chain.
Precisely. It gives them more control over their destiny, they can potentially capture more of the profits, and it allows them to tell a more compelling ESG story. For example, the report gives an example of a mining company investing in cleaner smelting technologies.
So they're not just extracting the raw materials, they're also processing them in a more sustainable way.
Exactly. It reduces their environmental impact, and they can potentially get a price premium for that greener product.
Smart move. Now, what about this whole circular economy thing we keep hearing about? Does that even apply to something as traditionally linear as mining?
It's fascinating to see how even mining is grappling with this. The report shows that more and more companies are incorporating recycling into their operations.
So less waste, more reusing, creating a closed loop whenever possible.
Exactly. It lessens their reliance on virgin materials, which is good for the planet, and it can even open up new revenue streams from those recycled products.
It's like the old saying, one company's trash is another company's treasure.
Precisely. And taking this innovative thinking even further, some companies are even experimenting with what they call mining as a service.
Mining as a service. That sounds intriguing. What is that?
It involves partnering with local communities or even governments to develop and operate a mine.
So instead of a traditional mining company coming in, it's more of a joint venture.
Exactly. The mining company brings the expertise, the technology, but the community or the government retains ownership of the resources.
So it's about sharing the risks and the rewards more equitably.
Precisely. And it's proving to be a really effective way to overcome those license to operate challenges.
Especially in regions with a history of, well, maybe less than ideal mining practices.
Right. It's about building trust,
Yeah.
showing that mining can be done responsibly and in a way that benefits everyone involved.
I like it. It sounds like the industry is finally starting to get the message. But even with all these innovative business models, even with this new focus on ESG, the report is very clear. The mining industry is going to need a serious innovation boost if it wants to truly thrive in this new era. Innovation in mining. It sounds like the industry is at this really interesting turning point, but that there are also some real roadblocks when it comes to embracing truly groundbreaking innovation.
It is a bit of a paradox. EY found that over half of mining executives they talked to are actually planning to increase their investments in innovation, some by a significant amount, like 20% or more.
Okay, so they're putting their money where their mouth is. That's got to be a good sign, right?
It is, but, and you knew there was going to be a but, didn't you?
Always a but.
The problem is, a lot of these investments seem to be focused on what you might call low-hanging fruit. Things like optimizing existing processes or adopting alternative energy sources.
So important steps, no doubt, but not exactly reinventing the wheel or at the mining truck, for that matter.
Exactly. EY is saying there's this real gap when it comes to exploration and extraction technologies, the kind of game changers that would allow us to find and extract these minerals in a more sustainable way, more efficiently, at the scale we're going to need to meet this exploding demand.
So what's holding them back? If everyone knows that innovation is key, why aren't we seeing more of it?
Yeah.
Especially in those really high-impact areas you were just talking about.
Well, the report points to two major culprits.
Oh boy, here we go.
The first one is going to sound a little crazy, but it seems like there's a real lack of collaboration in the industry, like a surprising amount.
Really? But these challenges are so big.
I know. But it seems like a lot of these companies still see each other as competitors, first and foremost, which is a shame because some of these challenges are just too big to tackle alone.
It's like they're each trying to reinvent the wheel in their own little silo.
Precisely. What we need is more data sharing, more joint ventures, more of that rising tide lifts all boats mentality. But, and this is kind of telling, the report actually found that some companies are hesitant to collaborate because they're worried about sharing data.
Really? Which, in the grand scheme of things, seems a little short-sighted.
A little bit. And then the second big challenge the report highlights is a lack of diversity.
And I'm guessing we're not just talking about gender or race here.
Not just, although that's certainly part of it. We're talking about a diversity of perspectives, a diversity of expertise at the table when these big decisions are being made.
Which is where places like universities can really come into play, right? They're hubs of cutting-edge research, cross-disciplinary collaboration.
Exactly. The report actually highlights universities as these incredible potential innovation powerhouses.
Because they can bring together researchers from all different fields, partner with industry to solve real-world problems.
And even spin off entirely new companies based on those discoveries. They're absolutely crucial for helping the mining industry navigate this massive transformation.
It sounds like we need everyone working together if we're going to make this reimagined future of mining a reality.
We do. It's a massive undertaking, but I'm actually really optimistic.
Me too. There's a real sense of momentum building, a recognition that things need to change, and that's exciting. So as we emerge from this deep dive into the future of mining, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
I think the biggest one is this. Mining is at a crossroads, the energy transition. It's a massive opportunity, but it requires a fundamental shift in how this industry operates.
A shift in mindset from short-term gains to that long-term vision we were talking about, a willingness to embrace really radical innovation and a commitment to collaboration, not just within the industry itself, but with external partners like universities, local communities, even governments.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It is a fascinating time to be following this industry, that's for sure.
Absolutely. A huge thanks to EY for putting together such a thought-provoking report, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and, well, maybe not, keep digging deeper. Unless you're a mining CEO, of course, in which case, dig away.